And we are live on Facebook and YouTube.
Excellent. Well, thanks for joining me today, guys. I really appreciate you guys doing the sponsorship with IT Business Owners Group. So, I guess we could start with tell us about how MSPMagic got started.
Sure, Scott. Thanks for having us today. It's good to be here. How did MSPMagic get started? It's a good question. I get asked that a lot, actually. My name's Taz. I run an MSP over here in Melbourne, Australia, and have been doing so for the better part of 10 years now. And we're a heavily focused MSP. We're heavily focused on Microsoft 365 as an MSP. That's all we work with. We don't work with any other product stack. And I guess the idea behind MSPMagic really came out of our experience in trying to manage tenants on scale. So one thing that we do is we go quite deep with Endpoint Manager and policies and all the good stuff in the M365 stack, and we pretty quickly discovered that as we tried to roll out our deployments to more than a handful of customers in a way that was consistent and easy to manage, was very difficult. So we decided to go out to the market and see what was out there in terms of tooling that could help us with this kind of thing. And I was a little bit surprised to find that there wasn't really much around that could help. I guess at that point we had to decide whether we tried to sort of put something together ourselves to help us manage this, or we took it a step further and try to build a product that we can not only use ourselves but take it to the broader market, because we were fairly confident that we weren't the only ones facing this challenge, or at least we wouldn't be in the future.
No, your product is great. There's definitely a need for it.
Well, thank you, Scott. I think you're right. There is certainly, we feel that way. It's good to know that others also think so.
So, how many people are in MSPMagic now? Is it three people now?
In terms of how many people work for us, or
right? Well, I knew it was kind of a startup. So it's you and Andre.
Yeah, we are very much a startup. There's myself and Andre. So just to give you a bit more background on how we got started, so Andre and I knew each other from from a while back. Anyone who's doing Office Microsoft 365 through CSP will know you generally work with a distributor, a two-tier distributor, unless you're quite big and you become a one-tier yourself. And Andre was working for one of the two-tier distributors here in Australia, which is how we got to know each other. And he seemed like a good person to talk to about the challenge that we had, and had a lot of skills in Azure and a lot of the infrastructure there that for development purposes and things like that. So we had a few chats, few beers here and there, and the idea was born. And fast forward a little while, and here we are now. So
excellent.
But to answer your question, so there's Andre, myself. We have a third partner involved in the business, who is my business partner from the MSP.
Okay.
And then we have a handful of people who do the heavy lifting in the background, writing the code and all that stuff that we'd love to be doing, but just don't have time.
So in total, it's 8 people, including the 3 of us. So we've got 5 developers working the product full time today.
Oh wow.
Yeah, so it's grown pretty quickly from the initial sort of proof of concept phase when we started on this about 2 years ago. And look, the adoption's been pretty high, and as Tad sort of alluded to, my previous role working as basically doing strategy for two-tier distributor across Southeast Asia and the APAC region. Got to work with a lot of partners, having to helping them to transform from like a break fix to more of a cloud services model.
Sure.
Quite a lot of the customers I worked with, they were kind of hosters, or what we like to call accidental hosters. So MSPs, usually fairly small, doing hosted exchange, remote desktops, things like that for their customers, not really intending to become hosters, but just kind of falling into it. And one of the things was with them transforming into the cloud space was really difficult for them to manage so many different environments. So this is really kind of a problem that when Tesla came to me with the idea was it was a problem that I've seen in a lot of countries, where from Australia, New Zealand, all the way to like Indonesia, Singapore, Thailand, pretty much no matter where the partner was, everyone was facing the same issues.
Gotcha. And so what are those issues that MSPMagic solves? Can you spell it out for those who don't know what it is?
Well, I think there's a couple of issues that we look to address here, but I just following on from what Andre was saying. So, Scott, this may resonate with you, I suppose. But one of the things that I remember running an IT business when Office 365 came around was that a lot of people in the MSP space were a little bit upset about Office 365 and felt that Microsoft was sort of starting to tread on their territory a little bit.
Sure.
And if you've been in our industry for a while, you'll know that managing servers for clients and Exchange servers, or setting up your own hosted Exchange environment, which you could then on-sell to your customers, was actually fairly lucrative business. And there were some big players in the market too, like Intermedia and so on. They were all doing pretty well out of hosted Exchange, and then all of a sudden Microsoft came along and just basically took that market away from everyone. And that people were a bit upset about that, and there was a lot of people were trying to work out, how do we actually make money now off Microsoft 365? Because really there might be like 10-15% if you're lucky through CSP, and that's not going to keep the lights on and pay the bills. So
Sure.
You've really got to kind of work out, and I think a lot of people have, but not necessarily everyone has worked out, how do you add value to a product that's got a lot of value in it already? And I think a lot of IT companies struggled with that early on, and possibly still today. So I feel that one of the best things you can do for your customers is to value add on 365 by delivering your own services on top. Now, whether that's consulting services or just monitoring and putting in best practices, and basically, I guess, giving them confidence that platform is configured in a way that aligns to good practices, and that you're keeping an eye on all that stuff. That's a really important job that needs to be done, and you can sell that. People will pay money for that, and that's where I feel that you can deliver a lot of value to your clients on a product that, without doing that, you can't actually make any money on.
Gotcha. Yeah, it's very tough. It's very tough trying to sell Office 365, and then you've got all the compliance stuff on top of it.
Absolutely. I mean, you would know you can't. Office 365 is a highly commoditized product, so you can buy it anywhere. You could probably go to the milk bar and buy it. I sort of look at Office 365 a bit like coffee, right? You can get it anywhere, but there's only a few people kind of doing it well. In Melbourne, there's a lot of people doing it well, but coffee, that is. But people like to go to the coffee place that they really do a good job, and they sort of take coffee and make it their own, and that's what you got to do with 365 and the service you deliver around that. So I guess where I'm going with all of this, so in order to do that well, you need to really dig in and understand where are those bits that Microsoft aren't quite handling well for you, and obviously, as we would know, security and compliance, as you mentioned, they're things that a lot of people overlook, and Microsoft tend not to turn that stuff on out of the box, because obviously it's not always sensible to have that on from day one. There's considerations you need to make, and they need to be sort of handled carefully with the customer. But anyone running an IT business will know, if you haven't done that over the last couple of years, people would have been phished. They've had compromises. That it was fairly common for a while there for people's 365 accounts to be compromised, and so ensuring that doesn't happen. I mean, that's the stuff that you people will pay money for again, and so having a way to deliver that to your customers on scale without having to sit there and learn to write PowerShell and really get too deep technical, which some people love doing, but a lot of people don't have the time or the skills to, or just the will to want to go and do that. And that's a big part of what we've tried to address with this product, is taking something that's otherwise complex and simplifying it to, a nice user interface that's easy to use, well documented, so you understand what you're doing and why, and then easily scalable across your client base.
That's great. And so you guys knock the compliance out of the park with it then. If you've got now, and you're always adding more things constantly, right, to MSPMagic?
Exactly. So you'll see we'll jump into the product demo shortly and go through some of those things. However, yeah, there is, we did go to market with I suppose like a base set of settings, as we like to call them. I refer to them as best practices quite often now. And yeah, as new things come about, we'll add in, we'll add those into the app and make it easy for you to turn that on. So
excellent.
A good example. People might be aware now. You can actually, Microsoft recently made a change to, say, the SMTP proxy addresses on mailboxes. So it used to be the case that you could only receive mail on one of those addresses. Now you can actually send mail on those addresses too.
Okay.
Which is a pretty nifty thing. So the next setting we'll roll out is the ability to turn that on all of your customers. Couple of clicks, done. You don't have to go in there and run the PowerShell and connect to every tenant. It's stuff like that. So as these things emerge, we add them in, and what that means for you as an MSPMagic partner is just a couple of clicks to the mouse and away you go. We'll add it to a template, and then your customers just get that setting. So
that's excellent. So whether you have 2 customers, 2 tenants, or whether you have 5,000, it will do it to all.
Yeah, if you onboard them into the app, they get the goodness.
That's great. That's great. Well, I'm excited to see it.
All right. Well, in that case, we should jump in and get the demo started.
Cool. Well, let's get started. This is MSPMagic here, but the way it works is it will connect to your partner center. So we do use delegate admin to access customers whenever possible. So that means that as you bring on more and more customers, you don't have to basically connect them to MSPMagic. They'll automatically discover them. You do choose which customers you want to use it with. So for somebody you have a managed services agreement with, makes really good sense to use the product with. If it's, for example, somebody you're just transacting licensing with, maybe you don't provide any technical services, don't have to use the product for that. But I'll cover off a couple of things here. In terms of, first of all, we'll talk about how do we add settings to a customer on an individual basis, but we'll very quickly jump into templates. So template is something that will allow us to have a collection of settings and apply it to multiple customers en masse. And what that will allow us to do is if we have to make changes, for example, a new setting rolls out, rather than configuring that on a customer-by-customer basis, we'll add it once to the template, and that will go out to all of our customers.
Can you have multiple templates?
You can do, yes, although generally 1 or 2 templates would suffice, so probably a bit around 99 to maybe even 100% of the customers.
Gotcha.
And the other thing that we allow you to do is to have customization to a template. So as IT pros, we do want to have as much consistency as possible across all of our customers. And if they all look the same, it'd be fantastic. But the reality is we'll have 1 or 2 oddball customers or user accounts that need to be a little bit different. So we'll show you how we handle the exception to the rule without having to maintain a whole separate baseline for them. And then finally, we'll talk about the compliance. So the compliance, I guess, at the end of the day, is the goal. Whether the customer's compliant, not compliant. How do we tell you when we fix things? So we'll cover that right at the end. And then after the demo, we can talk a little bit about what is coming in MSPMagic over the next weeks. So for the demonstration, we'll be using Acme Corporation and Intertech. So we're going to Acme real quick. Into settings, and you'll see all of the services that we touch on a single screen. So we do Azure AD, SharePoint Exchange, and Teams, which don't have Teams in the demo environment. Really easy, we choose the service that we want to target. So let's say Azure Active Directory. Choose the setting. As an example, a unified audit log is something that we want to make sure is turned on for all of our customers. The application will give you a brief description of what the setting is, and we do have fairly extensive knowledge base articles, and they all follow a fairly similar structure. So they'll all have an introduction, which is the what and the why. What is the setting? What does it do? And why is it important for me to apply this to my customers? Some settings, like the unified audit log, will be fairly familiar to most people. It's a fairly common sense setting to apply. Other settings that we might have may not be as immediately obvious as to why it's important to have. So that's where the knowledge base and the introduction will come in. We rate the user impact for all of the settings. So on a scale of low to high. Low, unified log doesn't actually impact the users, how they use Office 365. It's purely like a logging thing, so low impact. Enforcing things like per user multi-factor authentication, on the other hand, is on the high scale of user impact, because that does have the ability to lock users out, particularly maybe they might not have a second factor to authenticate with. That could disrupt their workday and result in support tickets. And then medium would be something like disabling SMTP or legacy protocols on the tenant or mailboxes, where it can do things like stop MFCs from doing scan to email or network scanners from working correctly. So would be disruptive to users, who could still result in support tickets, but it's not something that will lock a user out or stop them from going about their usual day. And then we'll also
the one thing that we don't want to do is implement a policy across all tenants, and then your phone starts blowing up with support calls the next day.
Exactly, yeah. So with low impact settings, we've got a way that you can apply those straight away to customers. And for things that are high impact, we have report only modes. So what you're able to do then is sort of apply the setting in a report only mode. It will then give you sort of the information that you need to make a bit more of an informed decision of, do I turn this setting on straight away, or do I have a little bit of work to sort of onboard that setting for that particular customer?
Okay, that makes sense.
And look, we will also in the documentation give you the admin portal reference or the PowerShell script. And this is sort of aimed at showing you how would you do this inside the admin center. So people that do this on a day-to-day basis go, yep, cool. That is actually the setting that I'm after. So it gives you a little bit of familiarity. And then the application is based around actions. Do you want to notify or enforce a particular setting? So when you choose one or the other, this will tell you what's the app going to do, how does it report on that.
Gotcha.
So jump back into the app. Let's say we want to do unified audit log.
So you're adding that setting to the template now for that tenant.
For this one, I'm adding it directly to the customer.
Okay.
So working outside the template at this point. And I have a selection here for the enforcement action. So we have this for every setting. And the enforcement action, if it's on notify, what the application will do is it will connect out to the customer. It will check the setting. But it's not going to change it. So for example, for enable unified log, when it goes and checks it and the log is on, it'll report back compliant, and it'll say unified log is already turned on. So it's just checking for us. If the unified log is turned off, it'll report back not compliant. Unified log is turned off, so it'll tell us that. But it won't take corrective action.
Okay.
On the other hand, if we flick this over to enforce, what will happen is when the application goes and checks it, if the unified log is turned off, it will turn it back on. It'll respond back with compliant fixed. So let's put it back into a compliant state, and it'll turn the unified log on for us.
Great.
So we'll add this to the customer. And what we'll see here is they've come in under tenant specific here. So we can see that this setting is applied directly to the customer. And we can go ahead and do that with the other settings, apply them to the customer, go and configure each one individually. Realistically, though, what we found is that customers are going to look almost exactly the same from a security or best practices perspective. There's going to be very few exceptions to the rule, just because everyone needs unified auto log turned on. Maybe how we do MFA, little things like that would be a little bit different, and maybe we'll have some special accounts that we can't apply every setting to. So what we'll do is we'll quickly create a template. And the template will allow us to have that consistency across our customer base.
Okay.
We'll call this one best practices.
All right.
Now, the user interface that we have here for creating a template is very similar to how we configure settings and customers. So we'll just go to Azure Active Directory again. We'll choose a couple of settings like we'll go with disable password expiry. Set that to enforce. Add that to the template, and we'll do 2 more settings. We'll make unified log a templated setting.
Gotcha.
And we'll also add prevent user consent to third-party applications. Add that here. So we've got a template here now with 3 settings. That's a pretty good starting point. What we can then go and do is go and apply this to customers. So we'll take Acme Corporation again as an example.
Okay.
We'll click change up here. We'll select our template, which is best practices. We'll hit next. So what the app will do now is it will tell us what are the new settings that it's going to add to the customer and what existing settings are applied to the customer, which are actually part of the template still.
Okay.
So disable password expiry, the action here is set to enforce. So that's inherited from the template. And I might say, Acme Corporation is a brand new customer to us. They're really big, not that familiar with them just yet. But disable password expiry, we want to enforce that for everyone. Prevent user consent to applications. Maybe I'm not sure if I want to actually enforce that for the customer straight away. So I can stray from the template at this point, and I can say I want to notify the setting. So it will first, when it runs, it will do a report, and it'll tell me if that setting's on or off and what impact will that have for the customer.
Great.
So when we click finish and we apply the template, what we'll see here is we've got the green banner as a template, 2 settings here. So they're from the template, and the configuration matches what the template says they should be. In this instance, it's just enforce versus notify. These are settings that don't really have a lot of configuration.
Okay.
And prevent user consent to applications, that's on notify, and because that's different from what the template specifies, we see this here as a template customization.
Gotcha.
We'll jump into another customer, which would be Initech. This might be a customer that we're really familiar with. They've been with us for a very long time. We'll go ahead and apply the template. We'll just say, look, we're happy to enforce the settings for them. So everything comes in as a templated here.
Gotcha.
And what we can see from the client list is Acme Corporation has our best practices template, but it has a single customization. And the tenant, 0 tenant, meaning there's no additional settings applied to the customer beyond the template. Whereas Initech, we'll see best practices again, 0 custom, 0 tenants. So they're settings follow exactly to our best practices. We haven't made any accommodations or exceptions to the rule for them.
Okay.
Now that we have 2 customers with the template, if we come back to the template and we say we want to roll out a new setting, what we might do is maybe we want to decide that we want to do per user multi-factor authentication. We'll select the setting, click next, and now here we'll select enforce in the action, and we have a selection. So when a setting targets user or mailboxes directly rather than being a tenant-wide setting, we can choose, do we want to target every user for that setting or just some? With a template, we want to configure it for the most restrictive configuration, because this is very much a target, a goal of where we want the customers to be eventually, not necessarily where they're going to be today. And
Gotcha.
we've got additional parameters. So here we can have the MFA enforcement set to either enable or enforced. So we'll choose enforced here. Now, when we click next, what we'll see is a list of customers here. So here we have Tenant and Acme. So these are the 2 that have the template applied to them. And MSPMagic will ask you, are you sure that you want to deploy the setting like this to all the customers? And I might say, look, Tenant, yep, happy to enforce it for all users. But again, Acme, brand new customer, not familiar with them. Let me do notify first.
Okay.
So then it will check the MFA status of all the users. And if anyone's not compliant, they don't have MFA, it won't immediately turn it on for us. It'll just give us a report. And then we can make a more informed decision of, do we want to enable MFA on all the user accounts or not?
So it becomes more of a reporting feature at that point versus, something that's going to go in and just set the setting for you.
That's right, yeah. So it gives us that, it basically helps to surface that information and configuration for us. So before we go and apply like high impact settings, we can make a much more informed decision. And we don't have to go digging through the tenant, checking every user account, and things like that. It'll just give us a fairly simple report for us to read. And I'll show what that looks like very soon. So what we'll do is we'll add that to the customer. So see, set multi-factor authentication was added to the template. If we go and have a look at what that looks like for our customers, then attack, again, we see 0 customization because we chose to enforce it. Just double check, yep, MFA, enforce all users.
Okay.
Whereas if we have a look at Acme Corporation, 2 customizations, and MFA was added as notifier for all users.
Okay.
And we can add more and more settings to the template, and that will just go out to all of our customers. So this can be a really powerful tool if you've got dozens or hundreds of customers. Add a setting to the template, and that gets pushed out to all of the customers for us straight away. We don't have to sit there going from one customer's portal, logging in, logging out, or trying to use PowerShell to push out settings. It's really
That's a huge time saver.
Yeah, a couple of clicks, and it's consistent as well. You don't have to worry that did we miss a customer, did we forget to add a setting. It's just whoever has the template will get that setting. And what we can do from an exception handling perspective. So let's say multi-factor authentication. In principle, yeah, we want to have it for everyone. In reality, though, we might have legacy applications. Maybe we have hardware that does need to log into Azure AD, but does not support MFA. So we want to have these exceptions. So we'll say we'll enforce MFA for all users here. And what we can do is when a setting targets users or mailboxes specifically, what we can actually do is have exclusions. So I can add an exclusion to this MFA rule, and I can say, there's a user called AutomateBot. We'll exclude them. And what will happen is when MSPMagic runs for all users for set MFA, it will discover everyone in the tenant, and it will skip over AutomateBot when it comes time to enforce the setting.
Okay.
So that way, if we have MFCs or legacy software, it's not going to be disrupted by the setting. we can do individual accounts, or we can also do groups. So for example, we might say we have a project team, market project team. For whatever reason, there's a legitimate reason that we don't want to enforce MFA on them. So we'll select the group, we'll exclude the group, and then what will happen is MSPMagic, when it runs, it'll enumerate out all the members of this group, and it'll skip MFA enforcement for them.
Okay.
So we can manage
Very nice.
it that way. Cool. So we can configure that. It's a templated setting because it's back to enforce for all users minus the people that we have chosen to exclude. We can do that without having to have multiple baseline configurations that we manage for the customers. And what this will ensure is if a new user gets created and we forget to turn on MFA for them, MSPMagic, when it runs, will turn on MFA for that person and it'll tell us that it's done that.
Great.
Likewise, if an existing user had MFA, but someone turned it off for whatever reason, MSPMagic will pick that up and it'll turn MFA back on for that user.
Okay.
So that's pretty much it for settings and templates. It's fairly straightforward. We can jump into compliance, and ultimately, the customer will land into one of two statuses. It'll either be compliant or non-compliant. So if we look at Hooli, not compliant, they've got a Cloud Essentials template with one customization. So if we have a look at them, what we'll see is when it was last run, so in this instance it was an hour ago, we can see they've got 95% compliance. We can look at all of the settings that we've enforced or checked. We can see they're all compliant coming down here, so they're in a pretty good position, except for multi-factor authentication. That's a non-compliant status. So if we click that, it'll give us a list of all the users that are causing the non-compliance and why, which here it's pretty simple. MFA state does not match enabled, current value is disabled. And the other thing it will do is also confirm for us all of the users that are compliant with the setting. So the reason for the non-compliance, if we look at the setting, is set MFA, it's set to notify. So it's gone off, connected to the tenant, checked everyone's MFA status, and come back non-compliant because some people don't have multi-factor authentication. Now that we know it's only 3 people that don't have MFA, we can come in here, enforce the setting. We can flick a quick email out to the users, go, hey, tomorrow when you log in, you're going to have to set up multi-factor authentication. Here are the instructions. And we know worst case, it's only going to impact 3 people that may not be able to log in or whatever their issue might be. So we can expect that. Whereas if we just go and apply this blindly to a new tenant, could impact hundreds of users, and our support desk could have a really bad day as a result. But 3 people, we can handle that quite easily.
Because I assume once the program goes through and works and syncs with the settings, you'd have to physically, there's no way to undo it except manually go into each tenant and uncheck that box for the setting, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Okay, because you can't reverse it from MSPMagic.
Depends on the setting. Some settings can be reversed, some settings can't be, but it does run on a schedule. So even if we were to reverse a setting, it will normally take 24 hours for that synchronization to happen again. Most of the settings, though, you just want to make sure they're in a particular state, so like disable password expiry. There's not really any time we'd really want to re-enable that. So most of the settings are going to be a one-way street. And then from a compliance perspective, if we have a look at a compliant customer, so we've got Cyberdyne Systems here, they are compliant. And what we'll see is 100% compliance. But if we have a look at the pills next to them, some of them will say compliant. Meanwhile, others will say compliant fixed. So compliant fixed, they're compliant because we've had to take corrective action. As an example, prevent the download button from being displayed on the virus found warning page in SharePoint. That was fixed. So if we look at the message here, download button was being displayed on the virus found warning page and has been removed. So this is
Sweet.
where we found the setting was incorrect. We've taken corrective action. We've told you what action we've taken, and then we mark that setting as having been fixed.
Great.
Now, some settings doesn't really, if it's fixed, like for example MFA, block signing to shared mailboxes, we'll see those fixed from time to time as new users get created. Maybe they don't get set up correctly. MSPMagic will pick that up and correct the settings for us.
Okay.
And that's perfectly fine. Just runs in the background. You can just look at the fixed report and go, yep, cool, happy days. Other settings, like enabling unified audit log, for example, if we see that being fixed, a setting like that should really throw some very big red flags for an MSP, because there's never really a legitimate reason to disable the unified audit log. And what I've seen in my experience with Office 365 is whenever a customer is compromised, the very first thing to happen is for the unified log to be turned off by the bad actor. So that way it's harder to track what changes they've done, where they've been. So if you see that being fixed, really, really big red flags should be being waved there for us. This is the great thing about MSPMagic. We'll check all these settings for us on a daily basis. Normally, if an account's compromised and the unified log is turned off, we might not find out for days, weeks, months, potentially. Here, we'll find out within a day that that's happened. Cool. That's pretty much it, really, from the current functionality of settings. We can apply them to customers directly. We can create a template to give us that consistent configuration across all of our customers. And we can then also modify, fine-tune the settings to suit each individual customer, because we need to be a little bit surgical some things. And then the compliance, MSPMagic, when it runs, it will either check and tell us whether the setting is correct or not, or if it's unenforced, it will take corrective action for us.
So I'm noticing, what are the things on the side that says Admin Center to the right of those?
Yeah.
What are those buttons?
So this will give you links directly to 365 Admin Center, their Active Directory, their MFA portal. So anyone that has used the Microsoft Partner Admin Center to do delegate admin is probably familiar that it's not the quickest website to work with. It can be a bit clunky.
That's right.
So for our own quality of life, we've taken those Admin Center links, we've put it into MSPMagic, so that way if you want to find Wonka Industries, really quick to search inside MSPMagic. Click on that, goes off to their admin center.
Oh wow! So that's really impressive. So you don't have to have an extra tab open to go straight to it, because MSPMagic already has the rights to it.
Yeah, so it's inherited from the user. So if the user doesn't have delegate admin rights, they'll still see the links. But what will happen, like for example, Cyberdyne Systems, if I go to their 365 admin center, it won't give me access because I don't have delegate access to them as a user.
Gotcha.
Whereas Acme Corporation, if we do have delegate access to it, click on that, it will load up their 365 admin center. So exactly the same way that it works inside the Microsoft Partner Center. The only difference is that MSPMagic is a little bit more responsive and quicker to search for users. So just a little time-saving thing here for MSPs.
So I really like the idea that you said, you brought something, you surfaced something there, a great thought. You said, so if a bad actor gets in and compromises one of your tenants, like you said, you may not know immediately that they've went in and turned some things off that are important. So every day you will get a report. Now, is that report emailed to you?
Yeah, so we'll give you a traffic light report. It's really meant as a bit of an executive overview.
Sure.
Doesn't have a lot of detail. Let me show you a quick example. Bear with me for a sec. There we go. So just a real a bit of a traffic light. Let me just go back to sharing my screen here. Hang on.
Sure.
Here we go.
Okay.
Green, blue, and orange. So any customer that's fully compliant, the tenant will be counted here. And this will count all of the compliance settings across all of our customers. So we can see here 15 tenants fully compliant, 250 settings. We've got 4 tenants that have had settings fixed, and it covers 7 settings, and non-compliance is for 4 customers, and only 11 settings account for the non-compliance. Now, non-compliant only happens when the tool is in report-only mode. Fixed is when it's been enforced, was incorrect, and we've taken corrective action against the customer.
And these come every day. I see it says daily compliance report. So that's nice. Well, you just get that in your inbox. So you may not even necessarily need to log into MSPMagic every day.
Yeah, exactly. So I guess the idea of MSPMagic is kind of runs in the background, make sure that compliance and configuration is consistent for the customers. This here, the idea of it is when you wake up in the morning, come to the office, have a look at your emails, and get that positive affirmation that, yep, all of my customers are compliant, or if I've had settings fixed or not compliant, that gives me the prompt to go, cool, let's go and have a look what was fixed, try and figure out why that was, and is it something that's fairly benign, or is it something that was fixed because it was maliciously turned off, for example. And not compliance, just a report telling us that, these settings are incorrect. And often you'll get that when you're onboarding customers with really high impact settings. You'll have that non-compliance until you go ahead and enforce the setting.
Okay. Makes sense. I love it. It's beautiful. It's simple and clean. Tells you everything you need.
Yeah. So I think really making it easy to use is sort of a really big thing for us. It's fairly complicated in the back end, but we really try to make the tool as easy as possible to use. We've seen the most success is when we have 2 personas involved from the partner, someone that's a bit more senior, that can be a bit of a decision maker in terms of what settings do we apply to our customers through the template, which customers do we do that with, but then giving it to a more junior person, like a level 1 technician, for example, to actually go ahead, onboard customers and push that configuration out. Normally, that would be left to a senior tech, someone that's familiar with PowerShell. But then the idea of MSPMagic is can be done by a junior, and maybe Taz, you can probably speak on that a little bit as well.
Yeah, it's. I mean, as Andre said, it's simplicity has always been I guess the foundation of what we're trying to deliver, and yeah, I mean, as you've seen in the demo, it's very user friendly. You don't really need any any sort of amazing skills to go in there and really just monitor that and then escalate if need be, and that's certainly how we use it, and so far it's served us well.
Well, I have to tell you, since you guys came on board, as you know, I am actually using the product as well. So I've been very pleased to see all those email reports come in and they're green. So I love it. It means that all my tenants are compliant. So you just set that master template up, the best practices. And how many things, Taz, are y'all adding to the in the near future for the roadmap? Are you adding new settings constantly?
Yeah, as they come up, we do our best to get them in there as quickly as possible. I think in our May release, we put in there was 4 or 5 new settings in that particular release, and that we've got probably another 20 sort of being actively developed. So it's just, yeah, we're trying to get them out as quick as we can, but it takes time, and they need to be properly tested, because the last thing we want to do is put something out there that it doesn't work as intended. That can have negative consequences, which of course wouldn't be good. It wouldn't be good for partners or their customers.
Well, I do have a question. So if you're adding new customizations and things, new things to the template, obviously, like I've already got my template, my best practices set up. So how would I take advantage of those new things as an MSP Magic partner? How would I take advantage of those if I've already
Yeah,
got my
so
template built?
so the idea behind the templating engine is that you can, as the new settings are rolled into the product, the idea being that you would just go and add the setting to the template, and then that would automatically get added to all the customers. So it's as opposed to having to go through and add them to the customer individually.
Sure.
So we have considered that, and that is part of the product's being built in such a way that doesn't create a huge overhead for you as the partner in adding a new setting to all of your customers.
Do y'all have like an alerting system that, hey, we just added this ability, or do we get like emails or anything?
So that we do send out the like when we do the release notes every month when we
Yeah.
add new features and things like that. So that's where we're putting it. We will obviously add in the app a notification bell at some point that'll alert you in the app as well. We're not quite there yet. Very much in early startup mode still. So, but yeah, that obviously keeping partners informed of the new settings is a big part of what we or the value of the product. So.
Well, I just think that the value is completely there. So what do IT business owners group members, what is the special that they get right now? Are you still running that special?
We are, yes. So at the
Okay.
moment, and this is open to obviously to everyone, but not just the IT business owners group.
Okay.
But the first 3 tenants are free, and that will always be the case.
Okay.
And then the deal that we're doing for the IT business owners group members is the 50% discount on tenants that they onboard, and that's a lifetime discount on those tenants.
That's excellent. Okay. And what is the charge? I know everybody's going to ask. What is the rate?
Yeah, it's a good question. We get asked that a lot, believe it or not. So our pricing model would, in keeping the product simple, we've tried to keep our pricing simple too. We just charge a flat fee per tenant, and that's per tenant onboarded, not not every tenant you've got in Partner Center. Just
Sure.
important to clarify that. And the fee that we're charging at the moment is $20 a month. And with the 50% discount, that obviously becomes 10.
Gotcha. Well, no, that is great. That's great. And how long? So, as long as they're a member of IT Business Owners Group, they can get the 50% discount. How is there an expiration on that?
Andre, I can't remember. I think that's in perpetuity, but I'll have to double check that.
Yeah, I think.
Yes.
Okay.
Sure. So the discount, if they onboard the tenants during the month of May, they'll get that 50% discount for the life of that tenant inside MSPMagic. And then from the 1st of June, any tenant they onboard, they pay the full price. So
Gotcha.
you bring on board tenant today, the first 3 are going to be free of charge. 4th tenant onwards, they'll get that 50% discount for the life of the tenant.
Okay, that's great. So we need to do it before the end of May. Well, we basically got a whole month. So, but I
Plenty
love
of
the way
time.
you do it. The you give the first 3 tenants for free, and that's really like your NFR. You can go in, test it, you can see how it works. It's not costing you the MSP anything. So I think that's a wonderful model.
Yeah, and you can still absolutely go out and sell that to your customers as an additional service, and yeah.
Free money. Who doesn't like free money? Absolutely. Well, that is great. I'm really enjoying it. Anything else you want to tell me or tell us about MSPMagic? Tell us something that you're proud of with it.
Well, I think it's worth highlighting at this point, Scott. So what we've shown you today is really around best practice settings in the app. So the next major release that we've got coming out is our policy management piece, which is really getting into the Office 365 or Defender for 365, I think it's called now. So policies around all those policies, as well as endpoint manager policies, so the conditional access, device configuration, device compliance, all that kind of stuff. So
Okay.
I'm sure there are people watching who are doing that, and that's a big part of what we do at my own MSP. And again, that sort of ties into the idea behind the product in the very beginning, was the ability to be able to push policies into tenants in a consistent way as well. So that's not far away now. We've been actively developing that for a little while, and it's going to be great once it's out, because what that essentially enables you to do is come up with a set of policies that you apply to your customers. Do it once, and then no need to go in and redo that every single time you onboard a new client.
Yes.
One of the challenges we've had with this, when I say with this, is so when in delivering M365 to our clients, as I mentioned earlier, we go pretty heavy on all the policy stuff, and we're full stack. So that includes even a Defender for Endpoint, as well as the Defender for 365, and then obviously all the regular Intune type stuff. Being able to consistently roll that out in a timely manner, so that it's not taking your text too long to do, that has been a big challenge, I guess, for us. And the way that we've had to deal with that to date is really just by writing our own PowerShell code to talk to Graph API to push policies in, and then obviously log into the portal and tweak them and things like that. So we've been able to automate it to a certain extent, which has been good. But having a tool that can just basically allow you to pick from a library of policies and then just hit the button and it pushes it into the tenant, and then manage that policy ongoing, is a really key feature that I think we're going to get a lot of traction with. So that's part one of that. So part one is pushing the tenant in, and then the next part of that will be around managing the policies ongoing. So another challenge that we've come across, and we've been doing M365 now for about 2.5, 3 years.
Okay.
The policies that we developed early on, and the customers we onboarded early on, their policies are starting to look a bit different than the ones that we're doing today, because of all the new features that have rolled in since we first did that. And of course, we've obviously learnt a lot about the product and the best way to roll it out. So some of the settings that we set up, way back when, not necessarily the way we do them today.
Sure.
And we've had, I guess, a lot of project work, and we're time poor, and as most MSPs are, we don't, as much as we want to go back and try to manage those policies and keep everyone's policies looking the same, we generally find that we don't often have time for that.
Right.
So what we seek to address with that is that we basically give you a way to monitor the policies against your template. So if you update your template policy, so to speak, the tool's going to tell you where your customers have fallen out of alignment with those policies, right?
Sure.
So that'll make it very easy to firstly identify, but then we'll also give you the ability to remediate on that, whether you want to do that automatically or manually. That'll be a decision that's up to you, but that will essentially ensure that every customer has the same set of configuration, and you can manage the updates to the policies and the new settings that come up in a much more scalable way than you could if you were doing it by hand.
I do have another question for you. So one thing that I was thinking about is, if let's just say that we onboard a brand new client for our MSP platform, and they obviously use M365. So right off the bat, we go in and we create the tenant. We give MSPMagic access to the tenant, and then they start showing up here. So in our MSP dashboard, let's say that we use that best practices template. You could actually, that would be so much faster to go through and check all the boxes, so to speak, rather than going into the admin center and manually going through each setting and checking off of a checklist. Okay, I just set that. And then not to mention, you've got to do it all the time to make sure that those settings aren't getting changed by someone with nefarious, reasoning. But I just think that it makes a lot of sense to do it off of a template. So my next question to you, Taz, is if you have that brand new fresh tenant in there and no settings have been done, I mean, not even the disabled password, it's just very vanilla. You implement that tenant. Is there a way that we can go? Because Andre said it syncs every 24 hours. Is there
Mhm.
like a button that we could push a manual sync right then?
We don't have, the button is not there today,
Okay.
but that's also coming very soon, because
Okay.
you absolutely need a way to do this on demand, and that's always been the plan, but we just haven't got around to adding that button in just yet. But it's not far away, and you're not the first person to ask that question. Of course, we get
Okay.
that quite a bit. So yeah, on
Well, as long
demand.
as it's on the roadmap.
Yeah, no, it is definitely on the roadmap. So
Okay.
um,
Great.
yeah. So look, I mean, at the end of the day, there's really, I guess, there's two value propositions as I see it with the tool. One of them is peace of mind, so knowing that that the things that you've done, are actually they're still there a week, a month, 6 months later, and I guess to what you were saying just before, Scott, about going in and doing all this stuff manually in the portal. Yeah, I mean, absolutely, you can create checklists and go and do it that way. Now, in my experience running onboarding projects with my team, the circumstances arise where we better not turn that on just yet, because for whatever reason, there's a multitude of reasons that could happen. Now, we all have the best of intentions to go back and do that, but often is the case that 6 months later you'll discover, yeah, we didn't do that. Why? What? And now we've got a problem because we didn't do that, and it's too late to sort of to go back and fix that. So we need, really, you want to have that visibility there, and you want to know that if it did get missed, at least you're aware of it. And so
That's the important thing with everything manual. If you're doing everything manually, it's easy to forget something.
it is, and people get distracted. Human error is a thing. No matter how hard we try, we're all, it just happens. And so having that safety net in place is part of the value prop of MSPMagic, in that you will be aware that you've done or that you haven't done in this case. So yeah, I think that's a really powerful thing. And then obviously there's the time saving aspect as well, which for us, I can tell you early on, trying to get all these policies in and get the tenant set up, it was at least a full day, maybe a day and a half, 2 days work to get all that done. We're now able to get a tenant from sort of nothing to where it needs to be in say like 2 hours, which percentage wise is huge. And we haven't started charging any less for that. We're still charging the client as we would have, to go in and do it all manually, I suppose, and because the value of what we're delivering is no different, but the time in which we can deliver it is much less.
It's just a tool to help you achieve the end result much faster.
Yeah. And it's an end result that you can wrap up with, put a service around it, and make money on too. So, I mean, we all sort of have two. I feel anyway, as an MSP, we've got two types of clients that we deal with. We've got those managed clients who pay us, what we need to be paid in order to deliver a good managed service and make sure that they're secure, protected, all that kind of thing. And then you've got those other clients who are maybe they're not interested in that. They just want to reach out when they've got they're bleeding from the neck or that kind of thing. And
Sure.
which like it or not, we all seem to sort of have that mix of clients. And so I guess what you can do with MSPMagic is, for those clients who don't necessarily want to spend that money on the managed service, you can still provide a managed 365 offering where it might only be half a dozen things that you're monitoring or turning on for them, but you can charge them a monthly fee for that, in much the same way that traditionally you would have charged them a fee to manage a server, for example, and just monitor and do updates to a server. You could conceptually do the same thing with 365. You might charge them $100, $200 a month, something like that. And that could be as simple as just ensuring all users have MFA turned on, the audit logs turned on. You might turn on some, basic notifications like SCC alerts, something like that. Simple. There's value in that for the customer. You make money on it. It's good. It's pure profit. And all of a sudden you can start making good money off a small tenant that otherwise you would have been making a couple of dollars on licensing.
Well, you've got a point there. Absolutely. So if you were going to break it out on the invoice, how would you line item that if there were not an MSP? What would you call it on the invoice to the client?
Well, I mean, we do this in my own MSP. We've created a product. We call it Axiom Secure 365, and it's literally that. It's just a fixed cost we charge per tenant. So in our case, I think we charge $200 a month for that. But MSPMagic costs us
Sure.
$20 or $10 at the moment. But yeah, we and really it's $190 odd dollars of profit. And then of course you charge them an implementation fee too. So there's upfront project work there too. We try to minimize the cost on that to make it a bit more palatable for the client. But look, any customer who's ever been compromised, and that's a lot of them, it's a very easy sell to say, look, we want to help you ensure that this doesn't happen again, because this is disruptive. It's people get quite stressed out and can become quite anxious about what's happened and feel a bit like it's intrusive. It's like when your house gets robbed. It's not a nice feeling.
That's right.
And of course, when this is fresh in their minds and it's just happened to them, there's no better time to sort of turn up with a solution to the problem, and it's $100, $200 a month, whatever it is, to make sure this doesn't happen again. It's a form of insurance, and it's a win-win, really.
Absolutely. No, I definitely am enjoying using it, and I definitely see a huge need in the IT channel for a product like this. So,
good to hear.
Well, did you have anything else you want to tell us about MSPMagic?
I would say, if you like the sound of it, if you like what you've seen today, then jump on the website, MSPMagic.com, book a demo with us if you like, or if you want to just jump in and get started, you can do that too. It's all self-service provisioning, really easy to get up and running, as Andre has demonstrated today. That you don't need it's really, really easy to just get in there and get started. So I would just say do that. But if you want us to walk you through the app, help you set up that first template and get you up and running, we'll jump on a Teams call with you and get you going. So yeah.
Yep. Andre did that for me. He kind of spoiled me a little bit.
Yeah. Now we offer that to all of our partners. So we find a lot of people do get up and running on their own. It's a fairly straightforward product. We do still like to give everyone sort of the olive branch of, we'll give you 30 minutes, 45 minutes, however much time you need, but normally about 30 minutes is enough. We'll jump in the call, create a best practice template together. So we'll often have, say, for example, like a senior technician, someone junior on there, have them drive it. The senior guy will go off a checklist, go, yep, cool, we do this, this, and this, and this for onboarding our tenants. We'll add that to the template, have the junior tech drive it, create it, apply it to a customer. Sort of, if there's any questions or anything during the process, how things work, we're on hand to answer that. And after that, they're good to go. The junior tech can go and onboard other customers, apply the templates and settings as per the more senior person's instruction.
That's excellent.
And that's the thing, like with a lot of senior technicians, this has kind of been their job and responsibility to do it, just because they have the necessary expertise. The junior tech's not really going to have the PowerShell experience a lot of the time to do this. And the senior tech, if we can get them out for $200-$300 an hour for billable hours for project work, that's a much better use of their time than clicking check boxes inside admin centers all day long.
No, well, I love it. Thank you all so much. I really appreciate your time in doing this, and thank you guys again for being great sponsors to the IT Business Owners Group. And if anybody is, I think this is on YouTube, right? So,
yep.
If anybody is not a member, if you're an IT business owner and you're not a member of IT Business Owners Group, please stop by facebook.com/groups/ITBOG. Fill out the questionnaire and we'll gladly let you in.
Fantastic.
Sounds great.
Thanks for your time, Scott. Thanks for having us today. And yeah, thanks for being a supporter of MSPMagic through your Facebook group. We're loving it.
Oh, I'm equally enjoying it as well. So thanks, guys.
All right. Thanks a lot for your time, Scott. We'll speak to you soon.
See ya.
Have a good
Bye-bye.
day, everyone. Bye-bye.
See ya.